Hey there everyone, this is Samuel Johnson and welcome back to the Lyoko Retrospectives, and today we're going to be discussing episode 87 of Code Lyoko, A Space Oddity. And in this episode, the group discovers another replica, and as you do, the group of course decides they need to go and investigate the replica. However, unlike the other replicas, this one is not on Earth. It turns out for the latest replica, the latest replica is housed in a supercomputer on the International Space Station. Now, the group does end up getting lucky because the space station is in between crews at the moment, so there's nobody on board. But that doesn't mean that there couldn't be something lurking around the corner. As such, the group is teleported in, and the replica for this one is Sector 5, so they latch the skid to one of the towers there, teleport in, and once they reach the computer, they realize... hold on a second. Sorry about that. Anyway, they realize that in order to destroy the computer, they have to shut it off in a way that makes it look like they were not there, that it was just an accident, because if the space station thinks that there was sabotage, then it'll lead to even more problems down the line, and just general bad stuff. Odd ultimately thinks that maybe if they broke a pipe, then maybe water could flow in and it would damage the computer enough so that it would destroy the replica. And so he and Yumi, because he and Yumi were the ones that were sent in, begin looking for such pipe. But of course, Xana launches an attack both in the replica and in the real world. In the real world, it turns out he's been using the International Space Station to make these little orbs or something that they're described as mini mega tanks, but pretty much they can sprout spikes when they're being used. As Xana sends 3 of them after Odd and Yumi, and they can launch spikes. They get super hot, so they can melt through solid steel. Yeah, these are pretty much the welcome wagon in the real world. In the meantime, on Lyoko, it turns out that Xana set a trap for the skid when it latched onto the tower. Pretty much this weird red ring that is slowly closing in on the skid. They thankfully know how to deactivate it because, like with the real Sector 5, there is a key somewhere that if they activate it, it'll deactivate the trap, so Ulrich goes to take care of that while Aelita guards the skid from William, who comes shortly after to take it. From there, it's just kind of the standard Lyoko fare, as Odd and Yumi manage to outthink the orbs by ejecting them into space through an airlock. And likewise, Ulrich does manage to activate the key, though he gets crushed in the process. As such, the skid is saved, and Aelita is able to successfully fend off William long enough for Yumi and Odd to ultimately break a pipe and damage the supercomputer that's housing the replica. And of course, with the supercomputer deactivated, Odd and Yumi are brought back into the replica. They're able to fend off William before he can throw Aelita into the digital sea, and so all 3 of them get into the skid and fly back to Lyoko. As for the B plot, it turns out in the real world, Yumi's brother Hiroki is looking after Kiwi, because apparently Jim and the principal were doing surprise inspections to look for any hazardous flammable objects, or fire hazard, any objects that could be a fire hazard. And so to make sure that they didn't find Kiwi, he talked Yumi into letting her bring Kiwi home. So of course, because of school and Lyoko business, she talked her brother Hiroki into watching Kiwi, and pretty much she wanted to keep Kiwi a secret. She thought her parents would freak out, but when her parents come home and discover Kiwi, turns out they actually love him. In fact, they actually end up they're playing with him, give him food. They just generally love him, and by the time Yumi and Odd come by to pick Kiwi up, her dad's actually offering, we can take him for a week if you want, and they're even giving him sushi to feed to Kiwi, even though apparently that wasn't something he was supposed to have, but whatever. So, yeah. Again, simple plot, but again, it's furthering along the whole stuff with Xana plot. Although in this case it's just kind of the standard stuff. They find a replica, go to where the replica is, de-virtualize to where the supercomputer is, and deal with said threats surrounding supercomputer before managing to destroy the supercomputer itself. Whereas in Lyoko, they're dealing with crap from Xana, who's trying to get them out, and just, it's standard stuff. But again, it's still rather interesting to see what to see the supercomputers and the environments they're in. In this case, again, one of the things that I like, and I mentioned before, is how the replica that the supercomputer contains is in some way a mirror of what where the supercomputer is. Because again, forest replica in the jungle, desert replica in a base in Mexico or New Mexico, I forget, and the replica of Sector 5 was in space, because Sector 5 is kind of a futuristic weird environment, and of course, and the data surrounding the sphere of Sector 5 could be considered space. So yeah, I like that it's in space. I think that's a cool idea, cool detail, especially since you see Yumi and Odd actually kind of fighting and maneuvering in zero gravity. And realistically, they are kind of goofing around with the zero gravity, though Odd does kind of get annoying because throughout the whole episode he's worrying about Kiwi, which, fair enough, I get how that is. I have a dog myself, but at the same time, world's kind of at stake here. Gotta prioritize kid. Although it is him thinking about Kiwi that leads him to thinking about the water main, so points in that regard. And of course, I like that the replica is a replica of Sector 5. And again, we do see a little bit more of Xana's plan with the orbs. There's nothing really speculated on this time around. It's just that the space station was sending out orbs. But of course, it wasn't just the 3 that Xana sent after Odd and Yumi. Xana was making multiple orbs that were just being spread on an assembly line. And so, of course, with that number, it still does make you wonder what Xana's planning. After all, in the first lab, they had those robo spiders that were guarding everything. In New Mexico, Xana was building circuit boards, and now here he's got little robo drones that are little robo drone orbs. So again, it's another small piece of the puzzle. And it does still make you wonder what's going on, though based on what it looks like, I'm guessing it might be like robot invasion or something, I don't know. But again, that's just a hint. But again, that's just speculation, so it could be anything. In the meantime, again, still standard stuff. It is cool seeing it's cool seeing the Lyoko group fighting through Sector 5. And again, I'll give credit where it's due. The stuff with Kiwi and Hiroki is actually kind of amusing hijinks, as Hiroki is playing with Kiwi. He actually gets Kiwi's name wrong, calls him Lychee, I think. And so when Yumi's parents come home and see Hiroki with Kiwi, they actually start calling him Lychee as well. And because Yumi fed the wrong instructions to Hiroki, Hiroki in turn fed the wrong instructions to his parents, and so they give Kiwi the wrong dietary restrictions, or give him the wrong food, so to speak. Sorry, I tried to use big words but didn't know how to use them. But pretty much, so it is kind of amusing in that regard, and I do like that Yumi's parents end up liking Kiwi, so there's a possible avenue if he needs to hide him. I like that. I also do like how Odd, actually one of the reasons Odd is worried is because of what happened to his Tamaguchi, Jean-Pierre, because if you remember what happened with that one, Odd was obsessed with that, and then the group took it and gave it to Hiroki, who let it die and then threw it into the streets. So Odd's just kind of a worrywart like that, especially since that was a game and Kiwi's a living, breathing animal. So I don't know. I've never owned a Tamagotchi. I never really formed that bond. I never really wanted to. I think it's kind of dumb. But otherwise, the episode's all right. It doesn't really feel like there's anything expanded on here. It's cool seeing another replica. It's cool that it was the supercomputer for it was in outer space this time around. I liked seeing the replica of Sector 5. I liked seeing the orbs, which I suppose could be another expansion on the plot. Otherwise, yeah, episode was fine. Just, we got 3 replicas out of the way now. Still a few steps closer to beating Xana, so yeah. Overall, decent stuff with Lyoko, and actually amusing filler plot. Yeah, again, actually a pretty decent episode, so yeah. So I don't have a lot to say for this or the last vlog. It really is just kind of the basic stuff, so I don't really know what else I can add to it. So I apologize if you expected more, but this is unfortunately all I can give. Hopefully I'll get more in later episodes, because I'm sure that there will be more to be added, but until then, hope you have a good night. I'm Samuel Johnson, and I'll see you next week. Take care.